It's Mandela Day. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. You can start your speech.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for this, and a happy Mandela Day to everyone. So I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Doreen Morra. I'm from Kenya, and I am a young leader with the International AIDS Society and the Generation Equality Forum. I also work for the Eastern Southern African Youth Alliance on HIV and sexual reproductive health and rights. So I'd like to start with a Nelson Mandela quote, which says, "Do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back again." Today, we are celebrating Nelson Mandela, and knowing Nelson Mandela from what we have read, from what we have experienced, Nelson Mandela was a leader who thrived during resilience. And in the last almost 1.5 years, we have had a crisis, a worldwide crisis. And we have seen some leaders who have thrived, some who have not really thrived, and some who are just hanging in there. But we are not going to judge their successes just because it was a success. Rather, we're going to judge them by how many times that they fell down and still managed to come up. We saw countries that actually were extremely overwhelmed by the coronavirus, but some of them just thrived despite everything that was happening. And as leaders, not only world leaders, but even country leaders, even as ourselves, we are leaders in our own perspectives. And you know as a person that you're a good leader from how you are able to hold yourself accountable, from the empathy that you have, from your humility, from your resilience, your vision, your influence, and your positivity. Because during the last 1 year, being positive during these hard times was one of the hardest things to do. And we saw some leaders just come out and encourage their people. We saw people in different community and grassroots be able to come up and just encourage other people that we are going through this together. And most of the time, we look at leadership as one huge ball, but rather it is those small impacts we make in our daily lives that actually really matter. Those small steps. I remember last year, the president of Rwanda was leading the campaign like from the forefront, and it made me so happy because he was coming down to the ground. He was personifying the whole crisis. Because if we continue looking at crisis as something that is someone else's problem, or someone else is coming to solve the problem, then we will never be able to move forward. But the minute we personify it, the minute we humanize it, and we realize this is our problem, we are going to solve it. I am going to solve it as a community leader. I am going to solve it as a family leader. I am going to solve it as a grassroots leader. I am going to solve it as a country leader. Then that is when you start getting the solutions. That is when you start moving from that point of it is their problem to it is our problem. And once you personify that problem, it actually makes you I don't want to say a good leader, because of course I know they are bad leaders, but it makes you like you're in charge during a crisis, because leadership quality is needed every other time during a crisis. Because during a crisis is when you're tested, when you're tried, when you don't even know what you're dealing with, but people look up to you to what are you dealing with. Let me give you like an example that we go through day to day. Ideally, the leader of a house is a father. So when something is missing in a house and something has to be, a decision has to be made on how do we get this, or how do we solve this problem, it is people look up to the father to, hey, How are we going to solve this? And the minute you start looking at a problem from that perspective, it actually gives you a way of moving forward, because the crisis we are facing, we are seeing some people not responding very well, and then we are seeing other people responding very well. So what are the ones who are responding well doing right that the ones who are not responding well are not doing? First of all, there is the issue of clear communication. Communication has been has lacked. During this crisis, we have lacked communication in very many aspects, and we have seen silence. The people you expect to talk don't talk. That is why I go back to my example of the father. When you expect a father to respond and he is not responding, then you look at each other like, what do we do next? So the response in some places was not very good. In some other places, the response was fine. The communication kept coming. And I know that everybody else was trying to be there, hang in there, and just do the right thing. But there are times when in crisis, everybody is panicking. So to be able to ease in the panic, communication is always key. You have to ensure that you are telling your people what is happening. That is why countries who, for example, my country in Kenya, every other day we have the numbers keep coming in, and I think the general public has reached a place where they don't feel the need for that kind of communication. But I feel it's okay, because we need to know that the virus is still with us. We are not able to solve it. Some of us are still figuring it out 1.5 years later, but that doesn't mean that we should stop the communication. The communication has to always be there so that people know what are we dealing with. We have being ready. When the coronavirus came, we were not ready. Most of us were not ready. Most countries in the world were actually not ready. And the gaps in the healthcare system were felt, and they were seen across the world. And in some countries, it was bad, that in some other countries. And even with the COVID throwing us overboard, we never took time to say, how do we go back to the drawing board and try to prepare ourselves better? Some people just got lost with the waves. Some others tried to stay calm. And I think that calmness during a storm is one of the major superpowers that most leaders have, because dealing with a crisis, and then you have to stay calm and you have to act like you're ready, and the waves keep changing. Currently, my country is looking towards the 4th wave. So you see that readiness of, okay, now what's happened? What is going to happen in the next wave? That readiness, there's some people who don't have it, and then some who actually have it. So as a leader, that readiness creates the calm in the whole storm, in your storm. And this is the storm we're talking about. And one of the things is, as we are fighting COVID, the world's problems are still there. Yes, we are getting ready for this wave and the next wave, but the problems of the world are still there. Hunger is still there. Poverty is still there. Other diseases are still there. How ready are we to tackle the other problems? Because as leaders, that is a challenge that we have to face. How ready are we for the other challenges that are facing us day to day? War is still there. Political instability is still there. So are we ready for those other problems? Are we ready to deal with them? Because everybody has been saying, after COVID, we are going to do this. But COVID has been here for 1.5, almost 2 years now. Are we ready to now address everything in general, or we are going to keep postponing the other problems? Because every other problem still continued despite the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think it's time we went back to the drawing board. And so how do we go through all of these things together as leaders? Because most leaders have not really reached that point where they are figuring both situations. And we have seen that countries have gone into war. We have seen maternal deaths are still happening. We have seen other diseases still going on, and they're killing people, and we are still trying to figure everything out. So I'm not saying that we can handle it perfectly, but we need a readiness plan. I can say that. If I don't know if that is supposed to be a thing, but we need a readiness plan in that as we are dealing with COVID, yes, it's here, yes, it's with us, but how do we handle the other problems that will come? Because other problems from a day-to-day life, they are going to be there. So how do we make this balance? Because life moves on, but then we are in the middle of a pandemic that we also have to balance. I'd like to say as I am finishing, so that I don't take too much time. As leaders, we have a challenge. We are living in times where a lot of things are not predictable. A lot of things are beyond our control, but we need to learn some lessons from Nelson Mandela, the man who we are celebrating today. Mandela went to prison, but still he fought apartheid, but still held his fort tight. And that was probably his superpower. And as leaders, we have our own superpowers where we find ourselves in situations where we have to make decisions, we have to go through the problems that life throws at us. We have to stay calm at a point where everybody else is giving you pressure and expects solutions from you when you are also
Ma'am, you're stuck. I guess there's some problem with your network connection.